And good day to everybody. Hi, I'm Walter, and I'm the Dutch Mentor, and welcome back again to our weekly series in preparation of future COOs. And of course, we'll always welcome senior leaders to come in and participate in dialogue. And we have an exciting opportunity next week. I will be joined by Ryan, who is an expert in information technology from a physician and administrator standpoint. And I look forward to all of you come and join us again every Wednesday, 12 o'clock, different topic. We have it set up for the next 12 weeks. So if you're on a growth journey for yourself, if you have an aspiration to become a healthcare leader, if you have an aspiration to become a board certified fellow of the American Healthcare Academy, then by all means join us. All of these topics will help you become a better, well-rounded healthcare executive. So I always look at the end of the year or the fourth quarter of each year as an opportunity to do something that we should be doing on a more regular basis. And that is about financial planning and planning for the next year in September, October. And November is all about talent management. And then developing strategy and meaningful metrics in the month of December. So that's where our focus will be as we continue on this series today. And of course, if you'd like to join me for our weekly open coaching call on Fridays at 12 o'clock, send me a quick email at info@thedutchmentor.com. I'd be more than happy to add you to the invitee list. You usually have, a group of 10 to 15 people join us with great questions. We, again, cover one topic per week there as well. So why talent management? Why talent assessment? Well, there's nothing more important than our front line. There's nothing more important than developing our middle managers. Why is that? Because 90% of our front line is managed by our middle manager. And they have a lot on their plate, right? They get a lot of pressure from the top and they get a lot of pressure from the bottom. So it's truly a pressure cooker to be in the middle of there. So what happens with talent management, that really has been, an annual exercise often held in February, March, maybe even April of each year in the form of an employee evaluation. To me, these things are often very poorly executed and done with great haste and not really meaningful. And it's partly to blame it that is because it's a joint commission requirement. It's a very standard HR tool to utilize. It is often tied to some kind of compensation evaluation, but it's not done well. And if you really ask all of your team members, do they get any benefit out of it? The vast majority will tell you no. Do they think that wages and benefits are adjusted according to how well I did my performance evaluation is done equitably and fairly? And they will tell you no. So we need to really separate those two things, the assessment of compensation and then the assessment of our talent. So I would strongly encourage all of you to adopt a new strategy and do this exercise with your team every November and then again in May of each year, twice a year. And it is about talent management and an assessment of each person's capability and capacity to be functioning at the highest level, right? Because at the end of the day, we need to have the right people in the right roles for you to be successful. One thing we know that as you continue to climb the proverbial career ladder, you can no longer do it all yourself. You're going to have to depend on your AVPs, your directors, your managers to do the things to help you succeed. And too often we ask of people things that are just not quite capable of doing that. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the time. They don't have the talent. So what kind of a tool should I use? Well, I use two different types of tools. One is doing a comprehensive Box 9 review, which we're going to be talking about today. And the second one is that I want the employee to own their own individual development plan. And I will do another discussion about that in another time. But today is about how do I assess the team against potential and performance. Performance is something that needs to be based on metrics, based on something that is truly measurable and needs to be deeply understood by both parties, both the boss and the employee. And again, that's a weakness, especially in healthcare. Too often these measures are very arbitrary, are very fuzzy, and the data is highly questionable. So we do need to make sure that this becomes an analytical tool. Of course, the assessment of potential is more on an individual basis and more objective. But the power of the two together and understanding where people are placed in the box 9 approach will help you develop a much better plan, both for recruiting and re-recruiting your top performers, as well as identifying those who are questionable fits or need to be managed up or even managed out. So over the next half an hour, I hope to be able to provide you some deep insight and understanding on how this actually works. And of course, I hope you find benefit in this. At the end of the day, being here today is phenomenal. Listening to it now or at a later time is great, but it needs to be action based. Right? We have to stop listening, but to start doing. So take an action step out of this, even if it's not the acceptable way of evaluating your talent in your work group, in your service line. Nothing stands in the way for you utilizing this. Because at the end of the day, it is your role as the leader to make sure you inspire and motivate. But also out of fairness of all of the high performers, that you address those who are questionable fits in the organization, or even identify that diamond in the rough who you can work with and elevate, or respect those who have been in the workplace in the roles for many, many years, have no desire to move up in the career ladder, but still need to feel rewarded, recognized, and appreciated in the way that they want to be recognized, loved, and appreciated. All right, let's go into this journey together. If you have any questions, by all means, post them. I can address them as we go along, or you can always email me at info@thedutchmentor.com. You can go to my website at thedutchmentor.com and book a free strategy call if this is something of interest. And I'll be happy to do it on a one-to-one basis or present it to a larger group and even make a workshop out of it. Again, I truly believe this is one of the most important things we need to do, because high performance at the end of the day, the equation states it very clearly, right? It's a function of building trust and engagement. We need to have the right people in the right roles in order to be able to build trust and build engagement to get you to that next level of performance. So a 9-box talent review is a performance management tool, right? It's about the current performance, not past performance, but current performance and current potential. What is the likelihood that this person is able to be elevated 1 or 2 layers in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? We know that people often leave organizations. Actually, people leave managers, not organizations, who fail to identify them as potential and fail to engage them in order to grow them and develop them. As leaders today or leaders into the future, it is one of your core responsibilities to develop people. Right? If we look at what is it that an employee needs, it's reward, recognition, appreciation. And the fourth one is talent development. And they don't want to be just put into a large group and say, here, take a couple of classes. No, they want some individual attention. So again, this tool and this process can help you understand who that is in your work group, and then what you can do about that. So the 9 box is very commonly used for performance management, and for a variety of reasons, right? It is easy to use. It has industry-wide applications, so it does not need to be just in healthcare. It can be across any industry. I actually learned about this deeply during the years at Quest. It provides a really visual summary of where your employees are on the performance potential, performance charting. Now, there are some biases that we need to be aware of, right? That's why this should be a bit of a data-driven initiative on the performance side, while it is more objective on the potential side. The key thing is, of course, how can we track performance? How can we track key performance indicators? Those are the KPIs. So we have to make sure that the performance evaluations that we commit ourselves to on an annual basis, because it is a requirement, should have at least 1 to 2, not 5 or 6, but 1 or 2 truly meaningful and measurable objectives on it. That, again, I would say to the employee, you own this on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. We need to track them to really understand where they fall on the scale of low, middle, or high performance. Right? Can they perform against an expectation? It is not good enough to say, listen, we need to improve by 10%. 10% of what? Be very specific. Make sure it is something that they have control over, right? The department needs to increase revenue by 5%. Well, how much influence do I have over that? How can I be judged on my performance if it is not relevant to me? So we need to make sure we take our time to really reassess how we state performance, right? How to make it meaningful to the employee, something that they can wrap their heads around and take the bull by the horn and work on very diligently so they can actually show how they have improved from A to B to C, right? And there needs to be consistent dialogue between the frontline member, the team member, or the manager, the director, whatever level it is, in order to continuously assess how well they're making progress. And again, the individual development tool, the IDP, is phenomenal for this. Again, the employee should own it, while the manager should support it. The second part of that is to learn how to create the tool itself. So first thing, again, we go back that we need to have a performance-based assessment, right? It should be job related and it should be valid. It should be based on thorough analysis of the specific job and role that the person plays, right? It should be standardized for all employees so it's fair and equitable. And we have to make sure that we remove any of the biases that can exist in the conscious and the subconscious biases. Both parties should be able to clearly articulate the performance of the job that you're going to be assessing, the performance of a team member on. Right? There should be no surprises. On the flip side, we need to learn how to assess potential. Right? You have the y-axis and x-axis. So here, potential, we want to look at 6 universal accepted markers for high potential employees. Right? What is their ability? Right? What is their expertise, their skills, knowledge, and ability? What is their behavior, right? What are their personal aspirations? Somebody can be a phenomenal worker, but have no inclination to want to go up. They're very comfortable with doing. Their work-life balance is in order. They get things across the finish line. They are what we call a fully committed team member. They're compliant. Well, that's a different type of a person than somebody who says, listen, develop me, grow me, need me, challenge me, right? Somebody who has aspirations beyond the current role that they're in. Somebody who has an ability to develop relationships and even deeper partnerships, right? Somebody who has the understanding of what empathy is, right? How to be warm and inclusive. Somebody who is learning how to facilitate and interrelate. Somebody who has a behavioral capacity of a highly effective leader, right? At least the beginnings of that. As you know, as leaders, we have to on a continuous journey of development. So here too is, one of your assessments. Adaptability, right? How do they handle change management? And the last one, of course, is the leadership qualities, right? Are there early markers for leadership qualities, including, again, strategic thinking? And are they successful in leading smaller teams? Right? Remember the span of control that we talk about in assignment, right? You usually have a supervisor with 8 to 1, or a manager that might have up to 30, or a director that might have 4 managers and then a group of 100 people below that. All these things the people can be assessed on their ability to motivate, inspire teams, their ability to develop a vision, right? And then an action plan in order to be able to perform. The next part is to lay it out on a grid. Now, you can simply Google and come up with a box 9 grid, and they, often you'll see them, they're very much alike. Now, sometimes they're laid out with 1 being in the bottom left-hand corner, or others will be laid out as this one is box 1, the high performer, high potential, in the top right-hand corner. I prefer it in this way. And again, depending on the size of your work group, you want to be able to assess each one of your team members against one of these boxes and see where they fit in best. And this is really something that is done based on metrics, right? Performance metrics and your assessment of their potential. Now, just doing that is not good enough, right? On the end of the day, this is a performance assessment tool, right? And talent assessment tool that you want to utilize to be able to continue to build your team and get it to the next level of performance. And again, one of the greatest honors we have as leaders is to be able to lead people to the next level, right? Jack Welch was extremely proud of his coaching and mentoring program at GE, to the extent that even today, most Fortune 500 companies are either led by or have GE leaders that grew up under his tutelage in their boardrooms. You might not have that level of power, but you certainly have the power to help people to reach their dreams. And that, again, is a responsibility of a leader. To lay this out in a way and doing it all by yourself in a vacuum is also not the best idea. The best approach is to do this first yourself, then ask 2 or 3 other people to do it as well, and then to sit together. So if you have a director with managers looking at the front line, right, each one of you can do it in a vacuum. But before you start taking actions, you want to be able to have a discussion with the team to assess how each person fits into whatever box they're labeled into, and make adjustments accordingly. Of course, where the rubber hits the road is where we're going to start taking actions. We know that if we have people who are labeled in box number 1, 2, and 3, they're high performing or high potential, or a combination of both high performing and high potential, that if we don't work with them closely, they will leave us. They will go to other organizations. They will find a leader that is more of a mentor or gives them an opportunity to be mentored. Again, sadly, in today's world, there was a study in 2021 that 95% of all executive leaders clearly identified that development of people is a top priority for any organization. Once you've at the conclusion that where it stated only 5% of those executives took meaningful action to support and develop and grow their team members, is sad. Right? So this is something that you need to take on as a personal responsibility, either as a chief operating officer, somebody who wants to be in a position, or any level of the organization. This is a tool that can be utilized. It should be your responsibility to look at your team members and say, what can I do to help elevate their performance if they are showing great potential? Right? That's where you want to do most of your work. You want to create these owners, right? These fully committed, self-directed, empowered team members that work with vigilance on getting closer to that North Star. Of course, on the flip side, on the box 8 and 9, where we tend to ignore things because those are difficult, right? Having people who are a questionable fit, or people who are truly underperforming. And it is very typical that when you do your evaluations and you have to give out your raises and you do your little, histogram, or and you find out that less than 1% or 2% of your team is low performing. Well, that's not true. Statistics have clearly shown that usually about 10 to 12% of your team is underperforming. But we undermark that because it causes us work, or it might us to have a difficult conversation. But this is critically important to the rest of the team. Right? Once people are labeled as questionable fit or underperforming, you as the leader have to take an action. Just like you take an action for the high performer to engage them, to have them feel valued, you now have to create an action plan and assess how we can get them from point A to point B. Right? I use in technique and really a 4-step approach about asking, requesting, telling, and then directing, in order to give people an opportunity to recover and to become a fully participating member of the team again. right? That's the up managing piece of it. It's not about telling people what they need to do, but clearly explaining to them what needs to be done and asking them what they can do to meet the needs of the organization or the team, and then evaluate against that. That's how they can go from a box 8 or a box 9 to become a valued team member, right? To go to box 5. So again, the tool itself is pretty self-explanatory, but it is to do it, right? This requires an action on your part. This can be deeply meaningful. Now, you don't go out and tell your team members where they fit into the box or which box they belong into. You need to have individualized conversations with each one of your team members and give them what it is that they need. So there's an action item identified for each one of those boxes. Of course, the most important ones will be the box 1, 2, and 3, because if they leave you, that's going to sting. Now, flip side, of course, is that if you do an assessment of your team and you cannot identify anybody on your team that fits in a box 1, 2, and 3, well, next time you have an opportunity to hire, you have to hire somebody who can show great potential. Right? In the first 6 months, you always go to box 6, which are newcomers and too early to tell. But once they come to the first year, they should be moving right into that box 2 or 3. Right? Somebody who can be elevated in the next 2 to 3 years. We have to be very mindful that when we hire for what the team needs, right? Right people, right roles. If we do this well over and over and over, you'll see the performance of your team go up exponentially. I think I go back to Jack Welch, but Jack Welch's philosophy was, if I cut the bottom 10% of my team, the bottom performance, year after year after year, about 5 or 6 years into it, I should have a phenomenally high-performing team, and he did. But it is very uncomfortable for us to think how we want to mitigate the low performers or the underperformers. So the philosophy here is not to manage them out first. The philosophy is to always manage them up first. I give everybody an equal opportunity to rise to the occasion, to at least become compliant. Box 5. If they cannot meet that standard, then you need to shift to managing them out, because those people are going to hold your team back. Those people are often the influencers on your team that pulls people back from performing, especially those middle performers who are highly influenced by negative people. Again, this setup really allows you to have a continuous assessment of your team. And it's a tool that should be executed twice a year, in May and in November. Discussions need to be held and people need to be set up for success. And, can you tie this into the annual performance evaluation? Of course you can. But don't make it one and the same, right? Dedicate time, because I promise you that if you have the right people in the right roles and you learn how to measure meaningful metrics and you maintain your scorecard, you will accelerate in your performance. There's no question about that. So what are the limitations? Because it's not all rosy. Right? We have to be aware of these things too. So one is that the method is subject to human error and bias. Right? It's still a human being doing. One way of to overcome that is not doing it alone. Right? To have a discussion with other trusted members of the team and to listen to what they have to say and then come to a unified or solution to where this person fits in and what actions need to be taken. Measuring employees' potential is very difficult because it's a bit of a subjective assessment. Right? So you have to be aware of yourself and your biases and really try to understand what the potential and what the ambitions of the person that sits in front of you. Somebody can make this overly simplistic by just popping people into boxes and say, okay, this is what I did, this is the tool. I'm done with it. But it takes a little bit more than that, right? Especially if we want to have measurable objectives for our performance and we want to have thoughtful discussions, but even more important, to have thoughtful action plans coming out of this that helps people accelerate. Right? That's the leader's responsibility. If you want to have high HCAP scores or high leapfrog or or you want to have, reducing length of stay, or reducing turnover. All these things are processes. But I have news that all these processes are operated by people. So we need to think about people as the most important piece of the puzzle. There's no piece of capital that you can buy to get you to where you need to go. It's still operated, especially in healthcare, by people. So we have to be very mindful about that. If we have the right people in the right roles, who have the right capabilities, right, the skills, knowledge, and abilities, and the capacity, the time to do it, you can perform and accelerate. Right? And the key here is that we want to be aware that we have certain attributes are favored above all others. And one of the subconscious biases is that if you're an extrovert, you are jovial, you are happy, you are outward. That often gets you more credit than those who are a little bit more timid or quiet or introvert. Again, often we have seen it ourselves, is that it's the introverts that have deep thoughts. You just need to learn how to get them to share it, maybe in a one-to-one situation rather than in a group setting. But they have a lot to offer to the team. Right? You don't want to have a team of all people who are exactly alike. Right? Diversity and intelligence and culture, all these things are exceptionally important. Right? We want to have different strengths on the team. So be mindful of that. So what I would suggest to you to do, again, this is all about taking actions, right? At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is not listening to another lecture, but it is to do. Go to Google and look for box 9 and print it out. If you can't find one, send me a note at info@thedutchmentor.com, and I'll send you the copy of slide number 7 that you can utilize for yourself. Number 2 is make a commitment over the next week and put it on your calendar that you set aside an hour or 2 of deep thinking of each of your team members and place them in the appropriate boxes. Now, if you find out that there are no standard performing measures for each of the employees that are fair, then maybe you need to start there. How can I fairly assess them? Right? Again, potential is a little bit more objective, but performance needs to be very clearly understood between you and your employee. If you like, you can send your assessment to me, or you can set up an appointment on my calendar by going to my website at thedutchmentor.com, and be more than happy to chat and show you how to properly utilize this tool to set people up for success. The magic takes place in the actions that you take over a sustained period of time. Nobody becomes great overnight. People who have reached greatness are consistently working hard every single day with great focus. They love the people that they lead. They lead through context and not control. They continuously working on setting a winning environment up for their team members, and they execute with great focus. Those are the 4 key attributes of a highly effective leader. But utilizing this box 9 approach, you too can identify where your team members fall on the spectrum, and then develop very specific action plans with measurable objectives, utilizing a scorecard in order to get your team to get to the next level. Start with a blank sheet. Place the names in that. Justify what it is, why they belong in these particular boxes. Meet with others to discuss and make appropriate adjustments. And only once that is completed, you want to start action planning and focus initially on the box 1, 2s, and 3s. If you lose track of them, they will leave you. I promise you. Every time a 1, 2, or 3 leaves the organization, that comes at great cost. So do everything you can do in your power to identify the 1, 2s, and 3s. Develop an action plan that is meaningful to them, not to you, but to them. And work with them. Assign them a mentor. Hire people like myself to work with them for 6 months or 12 months. Trust me, it is far less expensive to engage and coach and a mentor than it is to have to recruit. Recruitment cost is upward to $75,000 for a non-clinical person, For a clinical person, a clinical lead, that can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. On the flip side, on box 8 and 9, those people who are questionable fit or who are underperforming, again, you should go back and look at your bell curve. And when you're asked by HR in March before you give out raises, to where did they fall on the distribution curve, your bottom should be more like the bottom 10%. If you struggle to come up with one person, your likely criteria needs to be adjusted. Right? That's where true meaning comes from and true performance comes from. So that's the end of the lesson today. It is a simple tool to use, but you have to be aware of the biases and be fair to each of the employees. And the way to do that is by, again, sharing the information with a trusted confidant, have a conversation about it to make sure that each person is placed in the right box, and then use the IDP, the individual development plan, to be able to design an action steps that engages the employee and makes them feel rewarded, recognized, and appreciated, and of course, developed. And they will work that much harder for you. One of the things that I often get is, well, I don't have I have no way to promote anybody. Well, that doesn't mean you should forget about them. Sometimes you have to work with them and they have to leave you. But trust me, you will have great pride when you see some of your underlings grow up to become equals. And in some cases, they, go far beyond that. Right? People I've mentored 10, 15 years ago are now in senior level positions, even a couple of them CEOs. I'm immensely proud of them and what they have accomplished. Again, utilizing a talent assessment tool like in box 9 is not something you just do to check a box. This is a meaningful action that you can take that will help you develop your team members to build a high performance team. And through that cause, you will be recognized and can be elevated as well. So with that, I am going to stop. I want to thank everybody for attending now or attending in the future. You can find this assessment or this presentation, of course, on LinkedIn, on my YouTube channel, and on Facebook. If you post questions, you can certainly connect or reach out to me or set up a free strategy call via my website at thedutchmentor.com. Have a wonderful day. And again, if you're interested in joining our open one-to-one or group, it's a group setting coaching program on Fridays, by all means, email me and I'll include you into the invite. Have a great day. We'll see you again next week. We have a special guest, Ryan, who will be having a discussion with me around information management and information technologies. Certainly, AI will be covered. And if you're not aware of it, you should spend some time developing that new skill. Take care and have a great day. And I appreciate you.